There we go. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our kickoff meeting, our first team meeting for the Region 4 Climate Action Plan of the West Central Region Initiative. And so as I say, I just put in the chat box the agenda. If you don't see that or don't have access to it, just let me know. You may want to just open it up to kind of follow along. I'm going to go ahead and we have the first item on the agenda is a welcome statement and kind of intro kind of conversation. And I think Anna was going to share some thoughts with us about that.
Thanks very much, Ted. I'm looking forward to meeting everybody. And I think there's an introduction that you're going to do. We'll go around and say who we are. So who am I? I'll start. And I'm Anna Wasesha. I'm the president of West Central Initiative. A couple of years ago, we were working on a strategic framework for the organization, and we were trying to put everything together, right? That is one of those moments where you work as a team to try to make sense of what assets you have, what challenges you're trying to address.
That'd be cool. You want to watch this?
There we go.
Do you want to watch Dinosaur Train?
That's
while you eat your bagel?
Spencer. Hi, Spencer, and your son. Yeah. Well,
I don't know if they made one about that.
Hey, Spencer, do you want to put yourself on mute?
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm having a little child is one of the reasons, one of the impetuses for working on climate change in our region. So I was just going to say, we started this strategic planning process and we got to thinking about working locally and thinking regionally, because we're a regional community foundation and a regional planning organization. But it was impossible to ignore the importance of the global impact that we have ourselves by how we live, and then of course what the global impact is on us because of climate change. It's sort of the vector that impacts every part of our life. So we said, well, we're going to frame our work with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and then the question arises, well, what does that mean? What are you going to do? And that's how we got to TED and Pale Blue Dot, because for us to be scientific and rational and planful is one of those weird words that started being used 20 years ago. So I apologize for using it now. But to be smart about what we're going to do and about this immense challenge that we are all experiencing today, with extreme weather, for example, we need to have some baseline data. We need to know where we are so we can figure out where to start. And that is going to be one of the results of the study that Ted and his group and Mark Kelke and our staff have been overseeing, and we'll hear about that this morning. And then we have to figure out for each of ourselves and for our communities, what can we do? That's a big question we're always going to be wanting to ask. What can we do? I just want to say that just in terms of my own sense of the enormity of the issues that we face and the kind of finite resources and talents and skills that we have, I really love to think about having some tangible, actionable steps. And that will be something that I hope will also come out of this study. So I was sure that Mark would be able to find people in our region who would be willing to serve on this committee, and I can see this morning that he has, and I want to thank each and every one of you for giving your time to this. It's a really important cause that we're all working on together, and we're going to be guided by science, and we'll have and we'll learn from each other as we go along. So thanks for joining us this morning, and let's get this going. So I'll turn it back to Ted.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I just put in the chat box again, the agenda. Sorry, I'm spamming you guys here. I think Zoom still works where if you aren't in the room and something goes in the chat box, you don't get it. Oh, sorry. It's now giving me messages that are not what I'm looking for here. Sorry about that. Technology is still fun for me. Okay, let me see. Okay, sorry. I'm having computer challenges here. Where is my? Okay, there it is. Well, that took a lot of effort, but now I've got a screen shared. So, so we're there. We're up and going. Okay. So thank you so much, Anna, for the welcome statement. I think it helps us kind of understand sort of a positioning of kind of where we're trying to get to here. I just kind of touch on the agenda, kind of what we'll go through. First, I'll just give you a minute's worth of spiel about who Pale Blue Dot is, who I am, just kind of so you have a sense of that. I thought then we would talk a little bit about the project overview, like what are we doing here? What's the role of the team, that kind of thing. Then we're going to turn off the shared screen and have an opportunity to just kind of go around the room for introductions. I always like highlighting that in advance. If I have to speak, I like knowing about it in advance. So I want to give you a heads up on that. You know, and just kind of share who you are, your affiliation, if you're, you know, a city council person, or if you're a concerned resident, or you work at a business, whatever your sort of affiliation is that you want to share. And, you know, just a thought or two that you might have around the climate action plan, whether it's something you're excited about, something you really hope to see come about from it, a concern you have, just, you know, goal, anything you may want to share with the team that you think might just help them understand kind of where you're coming from. Then I was going to take a little time and go through the process that we're going to be embarking on, give you a sense of what that might look like and feel like. And then we've done some foundational research. We have a number of documents. I was going to go through a summary of the of 4 of those documents. And then share with you, we've got a community survey going on, share with you kind of what that looks like and what we're learning so far in the community survey. And then, you know, make sure we have some time for Q&A. That isn't to say that you can't ask questions along the way. Absolutely, please do. Do feel free to ask questions. It's a dialogue. And then we'll talk a little bit about our next steps. The other sort of introductory comment that I like to throw out there is, so these meetings ultimately, and we'll talk a little bit about this in terms of the project process, but these meetings ultimately will become more and more increasingly collaborative, conversational, where team members will be able to be broken into sort of sub-teams focused on specific aspects of the climate action plan. And it will be really your meetings to have dialogue with each other, to share ideas, to give feedback with each other. This first meeting is too much of me talking, and I apologize for that, but kickoff is a great place to just kind of make sure that everybody has access to some common baseline information and sort of a grounding and a process together. So just kind of a heads up. Today's kind of a talky day from my side, but those will change, I promise. So stick with me on this one. But do feel free to ask questions at any point in time along the way. So with that, I just throw this comment up here. I'm kind of a quote geek, forgive me for that, but this quote always strikes me, and I think it's a good sort of a grounding in terms of a collaborative team effort like this to create a climate action plan. So the quote here: to address our climate emergency, we must rapidly, radically reshape society. We need every solution and every solver. To change everything, we need everyone. What this moment calls for is a mosaic of voices, the full spectrum of ideas and insights for how we can turn things around. And that's from the book, All We Can Say, Save, Truth, Courage, and Solutions for the Climate Crisis. So I put that out there because I think that actually sums up kind of what collaborative teams like this are really about. It's about, you know, putting together in a room, even a virtual room like this, different perspectives, different ideas, and that's crucial. We've got folks from different expertise areas, folks that are concerned citizens, folks that have certain jobs that might give them insights, and it's important to blend all of that together to help us find solutions on how to move forward. So I always love, this is one of my my great loves about what we do is getting to work with teams like this, and I'm grateful for that and for all of your participation. So thank you. So a little bit more about Pale Blue Dot, just briefly. So again, I'm Ted Redmond. I am an architect and an urban planner. I practiced traditional architecture for a couple of decades, ran a large architectural engineering practice, And about 9 years ago now, decided I needed to make a change. That although I loved being an architect, what I was discovering was there were lots of really, I think, poor long-term decisions being made for short-term reasons. And I felt that I needed to evolve my practice to be focusing a little bit more intently on things that I thought needed to happen. So make a contribution more in line with some of my truths. And so my partner Colleen and I launched Pale Blue Dot in 2014. And our mission is to hasten the transition to an authentically sustainable, no carbon economy while elevating the public discourse. We do that primarily through climate action planning and sustainability planning, largely at the community scale. Sometimes it's for organizations, but usually it's at community scale or larger. We also do renewable energy planning. Again, sometimes at the scale of a site or an entity, but usually at community scale. So far, we've worked on 60 plus projects, or communities, I should say, in 22 states. The majority of those have been Minnesota communities, but we get around. We're a very small practice, but there aren't a lot of us doing climate action planning. And so opportunities arise for us to support folks in other regions too. So enough about me. Maybe we'll just touch on a little bit about this project. I think you have a sense of where we're trying to go here, but just to make sure we kind of ground it a little bit. The project that we're embarking on is to create a climate action plan. We also call that a CAP for Minnesota Region 4. And it's intended to guide and support action throughout the region. So ultimately, we can think of it as a plan document that, maybe can be used as a toolkit for the various communities throughout the region. Some communities with limited resources can just pick the plan right up and identify implementation actions that they want to move forward with in whatever given timeframes they have. Other communities that have different resources may take this as a foundation and tweak and modify the plan to better suit their specific interests. But the idea is to give as much content as we can to help provide some coordinated action and opportunity for moving forward. And ultimately, maybe we can find opportunities to stitch communities together. There could certainly be collaborative actions that can happen. So the planning process itself will review and establish overall climate goals, as well as establish strategies and actions to achieve those goals. The plan is going to have actions addressing both climate mitigation and climate adaptation. So in climate planning, mitigation refers to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. In other words, reducing the contributions that we are making to human-made climate change impacts. And adaptation is the recognition that even if we were to turn off all of our emissions tomorrow, there are emissions in the system that we've put out there that kind of bake in some changes that we need to prepare for in the coming decades. So adaptation is about what can we do to help improve and support our community's resilience to changes that we're facing already and that we can anticipate will increase in the coming decades. The plan itself will provide sort of a comprehensive roadmap. The way we approach climate action planning, we do tend to try to hit broadly all of the sectors that a community might face. So it's a multi-sector review. For those of you that are familiar with municipal planning, it's not dissimilar to a comprehensive plan. In fact, it has many of the same kinds of sectors that we look at, which we'll touch on. Those sectors include broadly buildings and energy, transportation and mobility issues or land use policies that relate to those, solid waste and recycling, And those three sectors, by the way, are the three larger contributors to the mitigation considerations, how we might reduce our emissions. They also have considerations that help support adaptation, making our buildings more resilient, for instance. But those top three sectors are where we get the greatest bang for our buck, so to speak, in terms of directly reducing our emissions. The other sectors include water, wastewater, and flooding considerations, climate health and safety, local food and agricultural concerns and considerations, green space and tree canopy, ground cover considerations, and economy. And so those sectors certainly have some contributing aspects to help reduce our emissions, but they are largely adaptive in their nature, kind of helping us adapt to the future and build resilience. The climate economy section is also a recognition that if we are looking at some systems changes, that means an evolution of how things are done. That's an opportunity for us to explore how can we create economic resilience as well as capturing some of the potential that these changes might offer for our communities. As an example, if we reduce how much fossil fuel energy we're reliant on and increase renewable energy opportunities, renewable energy comes with a significant opportunity for local business development, economic development, and job development. Just roughly speaking, for every dollar spent on solar, 40 cents of it or more is possible to stay in the local community if that community is prepared for that. In other words, if we have solar installers and solar businesses that are there ready and able to take advantage of that potential, as one example. So making sure we consider how can we help continue to build our overall community resilience through these actions. So in each of these sectors, ultimately what a climate action plan will have is having overarching goals for that sector. And then we will identify strategic goals or strategies, sort of vision statements of by 2030, by 2040, we want to have X accomplished in this sector. So strategies that give us direction. And then we'll have detailed actions that we can implement in order to work our way towards achieving that goal. So as an example, strategies are specific directional statements related to an end state of greenhouse gas emissions reduction or resilience. An example is reduce community-wide energy consumption by 10% for electricity and 10% for natural gas by 2030. So you can see that as a directional statement, that one's, I would say, a reasonably good one. What's really good about it is that it gives a specific vision that's measurable. We want to achieve 10% reduction. It gives us a time frame by 2030. It's very clear what we would hope to accomplish and what we would view as being successful. So those are the kinds of goal statements that we'll be working to create. Once we have those goal statements, then we will be exploring and identifying and refining action statements. So actions are detailed items. In this instance, we can think of it as sort of a menu of action items that different communities might select from or robustly take all of them in concert. And they are trying to give some detailed direction on things that can be done to work our way towards that goal. Action statements tend to be a little bit, usually it's a little bit art and science. We want to give enough detail so that somebody understands what we're ultimately hoping to do. But we also need to recognize that the actors themselves that do that will have a brain inside their cranium and will also have ideas about how to implement things very appropriately for their community or their department, their organization. So we usually want to give them some clarity, but not be too onerous about spelling out everything for them, where it becomes difficult for them to translate that into their reality. So an example, this tends to be on a more detailed version. And a way that I like to see as many actions as possible, which is establish a large business energy efficiency program to promote building improvements and practices that reduce energy use. Target 10 large businesses commissioned annually. And so the thing that I like about this is, as an action, it gives us an annual target, which means anybody implementing that action can kind of have something to steer against. And by the way, because we're doing this for a broad region, different communities can decide different targets. You know, for Moorhead, you know, maybe this action would say 30 businesses. Maybe in another community, maybe it says 3. You know, so that's okay. But the idea that it's a detailed action that folks can implement in order to move towards their goal. And as we develop our end products, we'll also provide links to resources. If there's examples that we have ready access to, you know, we'll be providing some of that also in the product that we create. So although the action itself doesn't necessarily detail what exactly a program like that is, we can easily provide links to programs that exist in the region that are similar, that give somebody a good place to start if they don't know what that means. So what types of actions can be included in a climate action plan? We tend to sort of think of them in 4 categories, just because it helps me sort of think through, do we have all the right kind of balance of actions? And so the first kind of an action is actions that help lead by example. So what I mean by this is that a county or a municipality that is implementing a climate action plan, they have operations, they have facilities, they have parks that they are directly responsible for. They're in direct control of it. That means that they can do projects fully in their control, that they don't need to collaborate or inspire others to do. They can just do it. And because in this instance, if they're public sector entities, they're public entities, when they do those upgrades, when they add solar to the city hall or something like that, they can use that as a case study. They can track the performance of it. They can calculate what savings there was. They can identify what hurdles they had to go through to accomplish something. They can put together a lessons learned sort of inspiration or educational component. So by simply focusing on municipal opportunities or county facilities, those actions, they are first improving their own footprint, but secondly, if done thoughtfully, they can offer those projects up as examples and help others to learn from what they're doing. And frankly, it helps to normalize. As we see others doing certain actions, you know, if nobody in a community recycles and suddenly you've got a whole city block doing recycling and they're talking about why it's a good idea and why it's a benefit, pretty soon people become more familiar with recycling, as an example. The next kind is incentivizing. So, you know, within public sector, incentivizing can literally mean an incentive, do X, Y, and Z, and we'll give you a $500, you know, rebate off your property tax or a $500 grant or something like that. It can also be incentivizing through thinking through how can we make life easier for community members or businesses that are making an effort to share in their part of making the change that we're looking for. So it can be, you know, for instance, hey, if you submit your building permit, and if you do A, B, and C, we're going to expedite your building review. We're going to nudge you up to the top of the list. Or it can be, you know, exploration of modifying how municipal or county fees are assessed. Rather than being flat fees, are there opportunities to create progressive systems where those that are supporting more and more of the climate action goals find themselves with less and less fee that they're paying? And of course, conversely, those that do nothing that try to support it, maybe they're paying a little bit more. As examples, advocating is a very strong part of a public climate action plan. So advocacy can, of course, be, you know, the traditional advocacy sense, you know, the idea of municipalities stitching together, counties stitching together to go advocate for better legislation that helps support some of our goals and interests. It can also be advocating towards the public through educating, just providing information, making sure people have access to information in order to understand what is a heat pump and why might I want that for my house? Does it really work in Minnesota? That sort of thing. It can also be advocating or educating or providing opportunities for industries to learn. Heat pump's a great example of that. We just installed a heat pump in our house last year, and basically I had to educate the contractors that I kept running into. We kept trying to get bids, and nobody was used to dealing with heat pumps yet. So it was a good illustration that sometimes just the industry around us needs better opportunities to learn more about the kinds of changes that we can do. So Climate Action Plan can do an awful lot about that, helping to create a better environment of information. And lastly, there are requirements. Usually in the United States, we're not too heavy on requirements, but there are requirements that can be extremely beneficial and easy to do. Think of policy requirements at the municipal level or at the county level. Establishing specific policies around how they do business can be very powerful. Also creating, ordinance changes or modifications or tweaks can be very powerful, or they can be light-handed requirements. An example of that would be, for instance, a municipality or county saying, when you submit your building permit, we want you to also submit a solar feasibility assessment with a return on investment calculation. And by the way, here's 3 or 4 suppliers that we've already talked to who are willing to give you that for free. So it might even be an easy peasy sort of effort for them. That's a really low level of requirement. In that instance, you wouldn't necessarily even be telling them they have to put solar on their building, just that you want them to be informed about that as an option. That can be an example of a requirement that isn't necessarily onerous, but could be impactful. So ultimately, what we'll be producing, we'll have a few products that we're going to be creating as final products. We've already created some process documents, which I'll share with you later. But the first is, of course, the plan itself. It'll be issued electronically, but it's a static document. It's a full document. It'll have sort of public-facing information, charts, graphs, explanations as to kind of what are we trying to do here and why, and all of the strategies and actions organized into each of the sectors. But it's a static document because it's a document we put together, create a PDF file, and it exists to help provide guidance. The second product that we're going to be creating is what we call an implementation matrix. And so that implementation matrix will be a living, breathing document. It's an Excel-based tool. So it's something that anybody, I think, that has a PC will be able to use, or even an Apple computer. And it'll have all of the actions and strategies in the plan in there, searchable, filters in place so that it's easy to kind of go through those actions and find specific things that you're looking for. We'll also have an opportunity to kind of put in some columns that a municipality or county can fill in with a little bit of guidance on how to do that. For instance, who's going to be the lead implementer on that action? What are some of the community resources that might help us to implement that? As well as some columns that as they implement things, they can kind of track their progress. So it's intended to help create this static document into something that can be, living, breathing, and move with us as we move through it. Lastly, we'll put together a database of similar example policies, programs, ordinances that are similar to the actions that are in the plan. Of course, we won't necessarily have examples for everything, but if we have them in our database, if we can find them out in the greater world, we will put them on the website and make them available. It'll be linked from both the other documents, so that the intention here is that if a community is going to implement this action and that requires, establish a policy to do A, B, and C, if we can find examples of that, of policies similar, we're going to put it on the website so that they can access it, and it'll be linked from the implementation matrix so that they can go look at it as a place to start. Not saying that you have to use that policy, but it's always great to see what others have done so you can learn from their successes and their mistakes. If you're interested in looking at kind of what a overall climate action plan kind of looks like, on our website, there are examples that are in there, just so you can kind of get a sense as to what ultimately might this look like. And by the way, this presentation is already on our team page, which we'll go through later on today. So you'll have access to this link also through that. Okay, so the purpose of this team, it is definitely a collaborative team. I think of it as co-authoring, co-creating the climate action plan. That means helping to support and reviewing, refining and prioritizing the goals and strategies. By the way, we have a starter. We have some recommendations in the Region 4 baseline and strategic goals report. That's an active link, and I'll also provide a link here after the meeting as a follow-up, and it's available on our team page. The team's also going to help us support in exploring or creating and refining the detailed actions. Also support in helping us identify what the region needs in order to be empowered for near or long-term implementation. You folks have expertise in the communities in Region 4, so just kind of helping us think through, hey, what are going to be some of the, what could be a stumbling block and what sorts of resources might exist that can help us overcome some of those challenges. And, you know, ultimately, to the extent that you are able and feel comfortable, helping to support and communicating the consensus of the resulting plan. You know, everything that you can do, you will have literally a creation role in this plan. You will be very well informed in the plan. That means that you will be a powerful person to be able to help support communicating it to others and help spread the word that it exists and how they might be able to start using it. So that's a really fantastic and important role here. And the other thing that I like to touch on related to the importance of the planning team is that everybody has critical expertise in that will be needed to make a great plan, and I can absolutely guarantee it. So as I say, there are folks that may feel and understand that, hey, I definitely have expertise in certain aspects of climate change. And there may be folks that feel like, well, I don't know that I have any expertise in climate change or actions related to that. And I can say that in all instances, you all have expertise that will be needed and important to the plan. Because if you do happen to have a categorical expertise in wastewater management or solid waste management or anything like that, that's awesome. That's wonderful. If you don't necessarily feel like you have expertise in those areas, that's awesome too, because you have expertise in what it is like to live in your community, in your region. You have other life experiences. You own a home or you rent a home, you work in a business, you own a business. All of these experiences that you have living in the region provides an expertise to help us make sure that we create actions that will be appropriate, understandable, consumable, actionable by our communities. So all expertise is super important in these plans. It really, truly is a co-authoring. So I just like to make sure that everybody understands that up front, that there's no reason to, no need for any of us to feel limited, because we all bring critical value to this team process. So I'll shut up for a second, just see if there's any questions whatsoever that that anybody has. And just so you know, I have a hard time seeing in Zoom. So whenever I'm babbling, feel free to just unmute and let me know if you have a question or thought. Okay, so now I'm going to turn off the screen in just a second. We can go back to face-to-face. Now it's an opportunity. We'd like to just kind of give everybody an opportunity for you all to introduce yourselves. Please, you know, who you are, what your affiliation is. Again, you know, maybe you're a city council person or a county board member or a staff person at a municipality. or maybe you represent a business or nonprofit entity, or maybe I'm a resident, I'm a concerned resident, I'm a volunteer, whatever affiliation makes sense to you to share. And then if there's a thought about the climate action plan that you can share, would be wonderful, just to kind of help give a sense as to kind of who you are, or maybe some of your priority or your concern. These are just examples. It could be, you know, what's motivated you to participate in this effort, or you know, what are you excited about related to this plan, or, you know, do you have any goals that you really hope to see come out of this, or a concern that you're hoping gets resolved? You know, whatever feels right to you to share. We'd love to hear what you have to share. So with that, I'm going to go ahead. What I'll do is I'll just call people out in order as they appear on the participants list. I think it does have a tendency of changing. So if I miss you, please forgive me and let me know I missed you. But I think when people sort of join or when they speak up, sometimes it reorders. In fact, it just reordered now. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with, if it's okay, and if you'd like me to, if you'd like to go a little bit later, you can just say, can I do it in a minute? That's okay too. So I'm going to start off with at the top of the list on my screen is Polly Anderson.
Hi, I'm ready. Andersons are, you know, going to rule the world. So we oftentimes get called on first. I'm really excited to participate in this. I'm originally from Frazee, and I now live in Wayzata. But a few years ago, when I was thinking about how I can impact in a positive way my hometown, I spoke with Dan Jewell, who founded Jewell Energy, and he said, go home, go to where people know you. So that's what I've been doing. My background is that I helped to establish the Energy and Environment Committee for Wayzata, and I founded a group called West Central Climate Action, which is based in Detroit Lakes. And we have a website, and we were having events until COVID. And since then, we've just used Artlist as a way to communicate. I'm also working in Frazee on a new regional park. It's called Wanagon Regional Park, and it's going to be an icon of sustainability, which is really exciting. We want to change behavior and show people how it looks to be sustainable. When I think about what to get out of this for the Frazee Detroit Lakes area, there's an opportunity to have a bus that goes between Frazee and DL so that people can live in Frazee where it's cheaper. I don't know if anybody's ever visited Frazee, you know there's a lot of room for improvement in our town. It's a struggling town with high poverty, over 20%. And the other thing I'd like to see come out of this is the bus, the electric bus effort. I've started working on that with the person who owns the bus company for the school buses. And it's sort of at a standstill. And I would love to see all the buses move to electric, which is a real possibility with the Inflation Reduction Act. And then those are my goals. And I guess, yeah, I'm really excited, and thanks for including me on this team, because I know I'll learn a lot from all of you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next, I see Sandy Gunderson.
Good morning. My name is Sandy Gunderson, and I'm from Becker County Environmental Services at the Solid Waste Department. So I love to talk trash. It's my favorite topic. My interest in joining the West Central Initiative CAP team is to understand the plan and how the sectors or the social systems really impact the natural systems. And we see that, you know, quite a bit, but then to help other people understand that also. I don't think a lot of people think about it, how solid waste can impact the natural systems. And my passion is in education. I love to share the information with others. That's my favorite. And then also to help how our county can help mitigate the challenges in an informed way and share that knowledge with policymakers, businesses, residents. And to me, this plan will be a great tool for communities to take actually concrete steps to be successful.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next, I am seeing Amy Moore.
Turn my camera on here if you'll let me. Hi, I work with White Earth Natural Resources. I'm the environmental coordinator. And also with the emergency management, we do a lot with climate related mitigation. So our goal, I guess, is just to kind of find out what everybody else is doing and just get some good ideas from everybody. That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. And Anna, you went, but you're next on my list. Is there anything that you would like to share further?
Well, no, I'm excited to meet everybody else here, but let me just say, I live on a lake. Many of us probably either live on a lake or near a lake. And so every day I'm reminded of how important water is in our region. So that's a filter that I look at environmental action through. Well, water is life. Water needs to be protected. So yes, that's a little bit more about me, but thanks for asking me, Ted, but I'm just really enjoying meeting all the other folks in the room today.
Great. Next, I see Ben Villani.
Hello, I'm Ben Villani. I'm working at West Central Initiative as a climate fellow for Lead for America. So this is something I started studying during my undergraduate years at Cornell, and now it's something I'm actually applying to study at graduate school. I want to gain a little bit more expertise in climate change and management, environmental management, from both like a policy perspective, a humanistic perspective, focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion, but then also what can I do in this area in terms of native prairie restoration is something I'm really passionate about. So the work that I've been doing at West Central Initiative as an AmeriCorps member is mostly being a writer and a content producer for our Climate Action newsletter, which I encourage you all to subscribe to. It's a monthly newsletter, so it's not going to spam your emails. But you can find that on our website, wcif.org/news. You'll see a link to subscribe there. And I'm incredibly excited about getting into this process because this is kind of something I see as being a future like dream job, right? I want to be on the front lines of making the communities I live in West Central Minnesota much more climate resilient and adaptable. I've been steering away from the language of sustainability because what is it that we're trying to sustain? The status quo is kind of what it seems like for a lot of the greenwashing that goes on in the media and with businesses. And so I'd like us to think more like creatively and imaginatively. I love that quote that you pulled, Ted, originally, because it's like this process of re-enchanting the world, reimagining life. It's going to be a radical and revolutionary process, and I'm excited to be a part of it. So really excited to meet all of you all, and yeah, to be working.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ben. Next, I see Chris and Christy. I'm sorry, is it Tafe?
TAFE.
Tafe.
Hi, I'm Chris Tafe. I'm a city council member here in Starbuck, Minnesota, and I also own my own business. And my wife and I, we've been trying to do things for renewable energy. We've installed solar on our home and my business. And just excited to help out where we can, spread the word of renewables are not they don't cost you extra. They actually can save money in the future too. So.
Yeah, I'm Christy, and so I own a little store in town here too. Yeah, we're excited to just get information out. We have an electric vehicle, and we hear all kinds of misinformation about that. So we'd love to, try to figure out how to spread that through our community, and so.
Great, wonderful. Thank you. Let's see. Next, I see Corey.
Hello, sorry, my apologies for oh, my screen's quite dark. Ran inside from snow blowing, so a little delayed. I'm Corey Krejcia. I run a biocomposite company up in Fargo, and so our focus is on taking different agricultural waste streams to turn them into renewable and sustainable plastics that can be used in a wide variety of areas. So our focus and my interest in joining this, I also sit on the West Central Initiative board as well. But my interest in this is to find ways to have larger organizations make more sustainable choices. And so looking at uses of materials, doing life cycle assessments, finding ways to recycle and or use renewable materials in their products.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Next I see Crystal.
Hi, everybody. I'm our sustainability coordinator for the city of Moorhead. It's a pretty new role, but I'm so excited. It's been about my dream job since about 2008 or 2009. I'm super excited to be in this position. And I'm very interested in climate change. I actually did a really neat climate change study in graduate school as part of a group project where we studied climate change in the Northern Great Plains and kind of looked at like global drivers of climate change with local temperature data. And it was so fascinating. And the thing that really came out for me with doing that research is just, I wish everybody in this country and in the world for that matter could have the ability to play with the data. And I think that it would take so much of the questioning of the science out of it if people could just see what the actual trends are and what's driving those trends. There would be no question if climate change is happening, why it's happening. I think we'd be able to just all get on the same page and just start tackling it. So I found that very fascinating. And I'm excited to be part of this team to, just learn, what we can do regionally for climate change. I think it's really exciting to, in my profession also, I want to try to communicate and tackle climate change with evidence, try to make it, so that everybody can understand and find solutions that the majority of people can rally behind. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next I see Edward.
Good morning, everyone. Ed Stensinger here. I work for White Earth and White Earth Natural Resources, where I do some emergency management work, also some environmental work here. And about a month ago, Ted and Mark hosted a meeting with our assistant director and myself here to kind of try and figure out this coverage and ultimately this partnership with West Central Initiative. And I'm very encouraged to hear the words mitigation and adaptation here when it comes to climate change and some of those efforts here. So we're very excited to be a part of this process. I think what you'll find with White Earth is we're very dependent on natural resources and primarily natural harvest of wild rice, which is very, very important to us here on White Earth. And last year we just so happened to go through, as we all did in the region, historic drought. And how do we mitigate that? How do we adapt to that as a tribe here is very important. So along with some other natural resources items as well here. So again, it's very important to us. And I think you'll also find that this is really in line with our multi-hazard mitigation plan that we have with the tribe on the emergency management end of things as well. So we're very, very excited about the partnership. So thanks for having us.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ed. Next, I see Griffin Peck.
Hi, I'm Griffin Peck. I am the Sustainability Project Coordinator with the City of Morris. I graduated from the University of Minnesota Morris this past spring and was promptly hired by the city. And in my position, I work on a variety of different projects and initiatives, a lot of which I've seen already reflected in some of the preliminary material we've seen this morning. And I've been working in building energy efficiency and green building. Some of you might know about LEED certification since I was in high school. And I'm really excited to be able to connect a lot of the resources that we've developed in Morris with regard to climate resiliency and adaptation with this group, and also bring some new thoughts that are generated within this team back to Morris and incorporate them into our planning as well. So I'm just very excited to be here and to learn and share, and yeah.
Wonderful. Great. Well, congratulations on your recent graduation. It's great. Looks like you landed nicely, so good for you. Next, I see John Kreft.
Good morning, I'm John Kreft. I teach industrial technology at West Central Area Schools. What brings me here is I see a disconnect with the great things that are happening with climate action. And at our school in particular, and I can only speak from my point of view, is students seem largely uninformed and perhaps even a bit apathetic in our school district walls to what needs to be done. Because they're going to be the ones that are doing the heavy lifting in the next few decades. And we hopefully can, get them a path to help us out. You talk about municipalities having an action plan. I would really love to see more school districts have an action plan on how they can, as a governmental body too, help solve this problem.
Awesome. I agree totally, actually. And I say municipality, but you're absolutely right. And in fact, the actions that we'll tend to have actions that are both sort of focused community-wide as well as like municipal or county operations. That could be municipal, county, school district operations. Of course, operations for schools and a county are going to be a little bit different, but at core, they both own buildings. They both have properties that they take care of that have trees, grass, and other. They both have waste streams that they're creating that they can consider. They both have fleets. So there's a lot of commonality there. So that's a great reminder. And I think we can probably craft the operational components to be county, municipal, school, or just organizational operations. Because there will be, I think there's going to be stuff in there that we can pull out and help a school start acting with. So great points. Wonderful. Next, I see Julie Anderson.
Good morning. I'm the Douglas County Emergency Management Director and the Public Information Officer. And my commissioner, Tim Kalina, asked me to be part of this. So thank you for having me. I'm excited about what I've seen outlined so far. I also think that one of the concerns I have is buy-in as the plan is developed. And so, I'm not sure if the approach will be this group's going to think of all the solutions and then we're going to show it to the people who actually can put it into place, or if there will be some, I know you're talking about a community survey. And I just want to make sure that gets to the right people, because it is the commissioners who issue those conditional use permits in the counties. And helping them understand. I know it's some of the granular concerns. So along the way, I hope we can address some of that. Is why don't they approve that solar farm? Is it because they're concerned about the long term? What do we do with the panels 25 years from now? So when we look at, well, why don't people just change and do what's right? I think there's some answers at that county level. And by educating and doing that outreach to help them understand, solid waste, collecting organics is wonderful. But if it's going to create all new routes and we don't have any structure as to where all these trucks go all day, every day to collect the solid waste, does it make sense? And so I know Douglas County is going to be looking at that. So I think broad is great, but as we do talk about some of those really specific things, I hope I can help bring that to the table.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And you bring up everybody's bringing up great points. So, but you bring up a great point that I think is a particularly interesting one in this instance, because we have a pretty vast region here that we're touching with a plan. And of course, there's a lot of commonality. I mean, we need to aim in the same general direction. But how that looks in, you know, and Frazee versus Moorhead, it's going to look a little different, right? And what is of concern to people is going to be a little bit different based on their resources, their specific issues happening in their community, all sorts of things. So you bring up a great point, and we do definitely want to. It'll be an interesting challenge. How do we get information to and from and input from a broad range of stakeholders, while also not making this a 10-year process, right? Because there aren't so many people, and I'm not making light of that. That is actually, it's been on my mind, and so we've got a few ideas about how we might do that. And so what I think what we'll ultimately really would love is all of you, everybody on the team will have access to other networks, right? So either you work for a municipality, you work for a county, you're an elected official, or you're a concerned resident that has networks, also work in a school district, et cetera. So we may, there's a couple directions we can take with that, whether we put together a focus group session and we invite folks in and hope for as much content, collaboration as possible. We might also create some tools where we can ask some specific questions and ask for ideas. And then also, when we're at the right point, ask for feedback on ideas. But where I'm going with that is that, one I think real important opportunity here for this team is how can we have you help us connect with the people in your community, the sort of stakeholders that should be involved in this also, and provide feedback. So just kind of think through that. We may have maybe it's an invite that we send out. Hey, we're going to do a focus group, and can you help us make sure that the city council members, that the county commissioners get this message? Or we may have a tool where they can, fill out some information online at their convenience over a span of time. Can you help us make sure that those people see that message? So that's a great point, and I think one that we'll have to work together here collaboratively on. How do we make sure that the right people are giving us some thoughts at the right times? Thank you very much. Okay, I see. Let's see. Next one that I see on my list is. I'm sorry, is it Krell Stringer?
Crail.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Crail Stringer. I'm a chaplain at Pioneer Care Retirement Community in Fergus Falls, and I'm new to our region. I've been serving churches throughout northern Minnesota, but I've been in Fergus now for 2.5 years. And I'm humbled to be included in such a wonderful group, capable people and insightful. So I'm really looking forward to learning a lot. I've been jotting down notes, things that I've really connected with what people have been saying. I'm with John and Julie. I have concerns about a lot of the disconnects and how the steps that we take to help communities to move in the right direction, how those things get stymied or delayed, or and what are the rationales behind that. I have networked in a variety of different ways into communities. I'm involved in Citizens Climate Lobby, and also the Nature Conservancy. I've been a Minnesota master naturalist, and involved with the Eco-Faith Network throughout Minnesota. Oh, I don't know if I had mentioned I'm a Lutheran pastor, ELCA pastor. So I've been involved in creation care advocacy for about 15 years. And part of my concern is, I asked the question, how did we get in this mess in the first place? And I see so many ways in which people of faith have neglected what I see as foundational, which is care for creation. And so I work a lot with pastors and consult with churches in community conversations about how communities can move forward. So I'm looking forward to not only learning a lot from you all, but also being able to pass that wisdom on, that there are so many different ways in which people can be involved and engaged in building resiliency and mitigating and adapting to climate change. So that's kind of where I come from. I'm also with Anna. I really want to see tangible, actionable kinds of things that we can do, not just talk. I'm also really pleased to see Amy and Edward from White Earth, because I think so much of that indigenous wisdom is necessary as we move forward in caring for the earth. Yeah, so I think that's enough said, but really delighted to be a part of the effort here and be included in the team. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. See, next I see Mark. Mark, you want to share a little bit?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Mark Kelke. I am a assistant community planner for the West Central Initiative. I've been on staff for a little over a year now. Previous to being back in Minnesota, I spent about 33 years in Alaska working on natural resource issues there. And so I feel very lucky to be able to kind of take that experience with natural resource work and apply it to what I'm doing with WCI. It to me, in a lot of ways, isn't traditional community planning. But I think as we're faced with natural resource issues, climate change, that it really has become or should be part of any community planning effort. The thing that excites me about this effort in particular is the collaboration. Just watching everybody as we're introducing ourselves and talking about the various issues, I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding, seeing a lot of interesting or hearing a lot of interesting perspectives. And so I'm excited to tap into your expertise, your local knowledge, and really this is, you're going to be, whether you realize it or not, kind of leading your communities and your constituencies, so to speak, forward on this issue. And I think that's incredibly important. And really thank you for being willing to do that. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Wonderful. Thanks, Mark. Let's see, I see Spencer McGrew.
Yes, good morning, everyone. It's kind of my name is Spencer McGrew. I manage Otter Tail County's invasive species prevention program, aquatic invasive species. Glad to be here. I was nominated by one of my commissioners, Commissioner Mortensen, here in Otter Tail County to be on this panel or group or whatever. So super honored about that. And it's kind of nice being sort of in the middle or the end of this introduction, because what I was going to say is kind of changed based on what other people have said. But one thing I'd like to point out is I grew up on a lake, so very fortunate for that experience. And I'm always thinking about water. But what I find interesting and a drive to action is the part of Minnesota we're in, especially if you get a little bit north to Detroit Lakes, is the meeting point of three major ecosystems: the Great Plains, the prairie, the hardwood forests, like oak trees and maples, and then the pine forests of the Northeast. And climate change is going to cause, the rate of change is going to be very rapid in that particular area, because it's kind of a balancing point for all these ecosystems. So we're going to see things if we don't take action. And even if we do take action, we'll still see them, and they'll be quite pronounced. I mean, I'm just looking at the weather today. I mean, we're having like an April snowstorm in December, right? And, you know, one thing is not a pattern, but when these things add up over time, you can start seeing a trend. So there's going to be change, and we need to adapt to it. Something I am really interested in with the climate is something called like the Overton window, which is what's considered radical, what's considered out there, what's considered discussable, what's considered policy, and moving that window back and forth and where we're at with that. Some parts of the world, things are policy, some parts, it's pretty far out there. But I think it's important to meet people where they're at, to move that window from radical to, you know, acceptable to ultimately policy, and do it at a rate faster than the climate is changing. So really glad to see folks here. Mark, nice to see you in person, or sort of in person. I was supposed to have a meeting with him tomorrow, which was canceled due to the snowstorm. And then Sandy, hi, it's been a while, but glad to be here. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. I've never heard of that term before. The concept is definitely familiar, but the Overton window, that's wonderful. I love it. And that's actually in large part what a lot of the actions in a climate action plan does. I mean, we're not talking crazy things, but a lot of things feel uncertain to people. I'm unsure of. An EV is kind of crazy. I don't know what an electric vehicle is. It seems kind of weird. And then you use one for a little bit and you think, what was I concerned about? This is easy peasy. This makes a lot of sense here. So there's lots of things in here that are just helping people see it, become familiar with it, normalize things that just are unfamiliar. People respond in general as humans. We respond, interestingly, to unfamiliar things. We're interested. We also want to keep it at a distance. So that's a great point, and definitely, I think, part of what a climate action plan ultimately is really seeking to do. Let's see, and I think the last and not least on my list that I see is Steve Lindas.
Yeah, hi, I'm Steve Lindas. Yeah, when you talk about radical change and stuff, my ancestors clearly were those that were comfortable with radical change, getting on a ship and sailing across from Norway and not knowing. Well, actually, I think they had brochures saying, "Whoa, this is like France. Look at where it's located." So they got tricked into coming here. Yeah, so I am a parent. I am on city council in Moorhead, and I'm teach at students at Minnesota State University in Moorhead. And there I teach physics and sustainability. My wife and I were both part of a group of faculty that instigated sustainability program. I can talk to you, Ben, about why sustainability and why not other names. But yeah, I love the ideas that are generating. And you know, I've already jotted down some notes of where my students need to go tour and stuff. But I view everything through a systems lens, physics and energy, and as part of my first actions when I got elected to city council was fortuitous conversation with Larry Kraft down at St. Louis Park, and we co-founded the city's climate caucus. It grew from there with a whole bunch of people joining in to just not even a year ago, we had 16 cities in Minnesota declare climate emergencies. I was challenged by one of my colleagues and on city council, like, well, okay, what's the words? What's the action? Words are cheap. Action is what you want. And so we actually said, yeah, we need a sustainability coordinator in the city's climate caucus, and hence Crystal. And so, there's the connections, but you don't do anything alone. You do things with people, and the ideas and that are being expressed here are wonderful. And so I'm looking forward to a lot of stuff. I will say that as a parent, I have children that are living my ideals much better than I am. So I have a son in Washington, D.C. that's heavily involved in policy issues, working to infuse climate action with Senator Heinrichs from New Mexico. And I have a daughter that I just came back through the snowstorm, well, beating the snowstorm, but she is figuring out how to live off grid. And, so we're having great conversations about, gasification generators and other things. And so, I need to go down and visit Morris and find out kind of what they're doing with biofuels and other things. But again, it's one of these things where I'm excited about the action, and I do see that students, you're not allowed to pin all your hope on the young people, because that's not fair. We need to be taking action as old people, but I am going to say that I see students that oftentimes are apathetic because I don't think they know what actions they can take. And once you actually infuse them and give them the right information, they turn from, well, they turn active, and that's what we need. But also everyone needs to be active. Thanks.
Wonderful. Yeah, I agree. I think some of the apathy too. I was hearing, I think it was on NPR. They were interviewing youth, and it was really depressing because I was hearing people say things like, I've decided I'm not going to get married, and I don't see having a child in my future at all because the world's going to fall apart in the next 15 years anyway. So what's the point? Or I'm not going to go to college because I don't think society is going to be around in 10 years. So I don't want to waste the time doing that. And that really made me sad that that's how people, that's what they're hearing right now. And the reality is we have so much positive things that are happening that we can build momentum with and on that. I have great hope. When I started Pale Blue Dot, I was probably in that zone. I did a hard turn away from my original career, and it was because I was compelled to do something. And now I see so much hope that I think that's part of the message too, is this is not craziness. This is not wailing against the impossible. It's building on logical steps forth, building on momentum that we have. And so I'll try to share a little bit of that as we move on today. Okay, I think, is there anybody that I missed at all? Sometimes the list gets kind of wonky here.
You know, Ted, I'm not going to say you missed me, but I'm just going to go back. My grandparent genes got turned on, and I don't have grandkids yet, but that's really what I'm trying to do is create, you know, that and also the biological grandparents. But I feel like I have grandparents whenever I meet other people with kids, and so I want to care for the planet, take care of them.
Indeed. All right, awesome. If I think I've got everybody. Everybody had the opportunity. Wonderful. I think let's take like a 5-minute bio break. So let's make it 6. Let's party. Let's say 10:20. Let's be back, and then we'll just talk a little bit about some of the foundational documents. So thank you so much.
Super.